In this video, we will talk about the configure function, which is used all over a generated feathers application. You can see in app.js line 24, we're saying app.configure, and we're passing in the configuration module. If you scroll down a bit, you can see we're saying app.configure, and we're passing in both of our REST and socket.io protocols. And on the next lines, you can see app.configure, where we're passing in each one of the modules that we brought in up at the top of the file. Now, for instance, let's just take a look and see what happens with app.configure services. So if we see right here, services is brought in from the services folder. So we'll look at that. And this exports a function which takes in an app. This is a configure function. You'll see this all over the place. It's essentially just a function that takes in the app variable, and then it can do things with it. In this particular case, you can see that it actually calls app.configure again. So now we know that app.configure accepts a function that takes in the app variable. So if we look at this user service that gets required in, so let's take a look at the user service, we see that it also exports that same configure function. It takes in the app. And this is a really great way to essentially keep your code very modular and have all of your code in different files. And we can see this throughout the application. So we have our services defined in a separate file. We have our middlewares defined in a separate file. Let's take a look at that. And again, this exports a configure function. So the configure function is a function that takes in an app and then can access all of the properties of app, including the app.configure function, so it can go many levels deeper. So it's essentially configure functions all the way down. But what it allows us to do is have nice small files that can still access services off of app or access configuration variables like this. All through this configure function. So that's the basics of the configure function. Anytime you see app.configure, that's essentially what's happening. Whatever is being passed in is a function that accepts app as a variable and then can use the app variable further. And again, you'll see this throughout the Feathers application, and it's a really great tool for splitting up your files and keeping things modular.